So Stuart Davies from OCHA is going to talk to us about collaboration at grassroots in Nepal.
Hello. Thank you, Emma. Thank you. Now, as I was practicing my Madonna Vogue last night, I've now got a sore throat, so if I need to reach for some water, I do apologize. Okay, I'm going to spend the next few minutes giving you a bit of an outline on the Nepal Earthquake Interagency Common Feedback Project. I'm Stuart Davies. I work for UN OCHA. I'm based in the Bangkok office, and I cover the Asia-Pacific region. My specific area of focus is supporting the coordination of communicating with communities. I'm going to talk about the project for the next few minutes. We're going to cover what the project is, why do we have the project, who's involved in the project, how does it operate, and then given that it's still a fairly young project, it's still being operationalized, the few lessons learned we've got now, I'm sure we'll have many more in the next couple of months, but we'll touch on them today. So the project is twofold. It's a single, easily accessible mechanism for sharing information with affected communities. It has a focus on gathering feedback to better inform our messaging. The second part is to provide technical and financial support to the local partners to augment existing feedback and information projects. The project is a 6-month funded project funded by UK Aid. Thank you very much, DFID. It's managed by the UN Resident Coordinator Office, and it's in service to the entire humanitarian country team and their partners. Why do we have the project? Even through the qualitative feedback we've got already, there is and consistently is a lack of information getting to communities on aid, service, provisions, entitlements. There is always a consistent lack of feedback as well across a response. And for us, and particularly from my perspective, there is a need to coordinate this information exchange as well. For us, a focus is on trying to quantify the feedback. So we often hear ad hoc or anecdotal stories through field missions, field reports, something I heard in some village when I was on mission. The idea of this project is to try and quantify all this feedback using a systematic mechanism so that the senior leadership can actually sort of put some numbers and some quantities behind what these people are saying, so we don't just rely on ad hoc stories. So the idea is basically to give senior leadership some quality analysis to inform decision making directly from the field. It's great being here and talking in the CDAC forum here. 15 CDAC members have been involved in the coordination of communication with communities in Nepal, including the Secretariat. That's 16 of us here in this room. I'm not going to list all of the other partners, but we're working with a whole range of partners, including Red Cross, the Nepal Scouts, Microsoft, a whole range of partners outside the network. But for me, this is the first response I've been involved with where we've had this level of collaboration, even within the CDAC network. Challenging, but inspiring as well. How do we do this? So there has been a CWC working group from day one in the response. I think there's about 180 people on that mailing list, but at least 15 active multi-sector partners from UN agencies, INGOs, national NGOs, the Nepal Scouts, women's groups, Microsoft, a whole range of actors that have coordinated the messages, the message distribution, i.e. working through 350 local radio stations, private as well as community radio stations as well. Coordinating and developing common information education materials, so we're not sort of sending different format styles and messages across the communities. An effort to consolidate the feedback, as well as coordinate information communication assessments. So that's taken us to where we are today. We have 4 key elements within this project. I don't have time this morning to talk about the entire project, but we have many opportunities over coffee, lunch, dinner, and so on and so forth. But I really wanted to focus on, and this sort of talks to what I think Nigel was saying earlier, is What do we mean by local? Who is local? Who are our local partners? So the idea for this project, there's 4 components, and it's basically to augment existing structures, processes for gathering and sharing information. So the first one, while not local, is ground truth. You'll hear from Nick a little bit later today. The idea for ground truth is to build the capacity and support a local implementing partner on developing and delivering micro-perception surveys. That local partner is also supporting citizens to connect with service providers. So it's basically a mobile help desk where young volunteers connected to district level government, connected to NGOs, connected to civil society, are physically walking around communities, asking people what are their needs, and then trying to help them connect to service providers, be it Save the Children, the government hotline, or UN partners. We're working with Internews as part of this project. They're working with local media partners to ensure we have unformatted, good quality, localized feedback informing our information provision. They're also doing some work around rumour tracking, and I think Stain is in the room, and he's going to talk a little bit later about a similar model for the Ebola response. So Nepal Scouts, they, funny enough, became a key partner for us because of their connection to community. There's 2,500 Nepal Scouts. And mind you, these Scouts range from the age of 18 to 80. And I know I was training with them. So the Scout leaders cut across demographics really, really well. We trained them a few weeks ago to improve their information, their ability to provide information, and to gather systematic feedback from the communities they're from. These guys are becoming a key element to this collaboration, I guess, because of their ability to have coverage across the 14 most affected districts that we're working in. They're localized, they know the government, they know the partners, and they know their community. Finally, all these elements need to come together into some sort of common mechanism. So we have been using a range of different technologies. I'm going to take some water, excuse me. Fortunately, we've been working with Microsoft. Microsoft has an innovation center led by a whole amazing young crowd of innovators. We're using Excel Online, so it's an open source software that we're able to pull all this feedback into a common database. The idea of this is to be open source. The idea is that all the different partners that use the common feedback mechanism, the common template, will have access to this information. My priority is to ensure that the data that comes out of this can inform the humanitarian coordinator, can inform the humanitarian country team, will be used by the intercluster coordination fora to informing their strategic and operational decisions. But then our partners, including Quake Help Desk, the Nepal Scouts, might be Save the Children, these guys will then be able to use this analysis back at the district level. So we can ensure that, well, for me, the priority is to ensure senior leadership use this data. We've had a commitment to district level government to provide this analysis for them to improve their operational strategic decision making. Everyone loves a diagram, and for the last 2 months, I've been trying to explain what this project's about, and I've gone through 4 or 5 different iterations of a diagram. So this is to try to give you a sense of a whole range of partners are engaging with communities ongoing, NGOs through distribution sites, help desks, Ground Truth and Quake Help Desk will be doing micro-surveying. Community mobilizers like the Red Cross and the Nepal Scouts are forever engaging with the communities. Soon we'll be working with the Nepal porters to get to the more remote areas. So this is an engagement going on constantly, but we've never really had the capacity to quantify and aggregate all this feedback together. So we're going to be using Kobo Toolbox, which is just a technology. It's an online open source software that's been developed over the years, as well as paper form surveying. We have lots of partners, including small women's groups that prefer to use paper forms still. So we're using a couple of different options to gather this feedback. And I guess the 2 key elements for this is that there is a common data hub, but those partners are actually able to collaborate with each other in the field. So women's groups have said, yes, we want you to gather feedback, but we don't have the capacity to do that. So the Nepal Scouts will work with the women's groups. Quake Help Desk will work with the Scouts. So the idea is that they all work together to pull it all together. Just really quickly, we have a whole lot of qualitative feedback coming in. There is perceptions of unequal aid distribution in Nepal. You've probably read that in the news. There is some concern about the pace of progress. These are sort of high-level big issues that we need to deal with. But I've just listed a few issues up behind me that we can actually handle this. We can actually improve our information provision. We can actually change our operational approaches to improve some of the issues that we're seeing in the feedback. So I think as we develop this project, we'll be able to move forward on a few of these. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to be really, really quick. A few lessons learned, and I know we have many, many more to come. The first one is we have built on lessons learned. I've been doing this for a few years, particularly in the Philippines, in large-scale and small-scale responses, as many people in this room have been doing elsewhere. It has improved the quality of the project design. It's improved the inception and the early operations that we have had. The downfall is for sudden onset disasters, it's still slow. We've got a whole lot of work, again, touching on what do we do in preparedness, where there's a whole range of things that we as a community here can work on to ensure that we can be much faster in the initial few weeks. Other lesson learned, absolutely. There is still a lack of information being shared with communities. For the more remote communities in Nepal, there's a lack of information sharing within and between the communities as well. This project has absolutely benefited from resources being dedicated to this project. Huge benefit, as well as the institutional support coming from the humanitarian coordinator, the UN Resident Coordinator Office, which is running the response. Us working for OCHA has been in a beautiful, novel situation where we're supporting the Resident Coordinator Office run this response. So with that leadership, this project would never have been initiated. And I think the other key elements is to have this work built into normal or the humanitarian program processes. The flash appeal, the monitoring frameworks, cluster briefs, these sorts of things. So I guess that's a positive lesson for this project. And then finally, thinking about the Red Cross and thinking about the Nepal Scouts and these sorts of partners, this is an opportunity to not look at this as a feedback mechanism for the humanitarian community, but possibly a community feedback monitoring system or approach that can work across development models and humanitarian models. So looking forward in a country like Nepal, where it's all about development, I think the questions and the answers may change, but the model may not have to change. Thank you.